Hey there guys, Aldershot back with our fourth installment of Warframe's Beginner's Guide. And today we'll be covering the initial Warframes that you get to choose from when you first start the game. And I'll show you who they are. Your choices is Excalibur, uh, or you can choose Mag, or you can choose Loki. And what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of go over each Warframe, each of the initial Warframes, and talk about the advantages and disadvantages of picking one or the other. And we'll talk about a little bit of how suitable they are for early, beginning, and end game as well. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to go into Xeni, which is a very highly played map for farming and such. And we're going to play through just the first 5 rounds with each Warframe, and we'll go over the details of each one as well. We'll also talk about the general consensus of the Warframe community and their opinions on each Warframe as well. So let's get right into that. We will start. Oh, I should also mention that my Mag Prime, or my Mag, and my Excalibur, they're the Prime versions, they're not the regular versions. Now, that's not going to really affect this video. And I should also mention this video might be a little bit long. We have to go through 3 Warframes. But as I was saying, it shouldn't really affect your impression on each of the Warframe, because the Prime versions really don't have that much more of a benefit than regular versions. The only real difference is, you get some gold trimmings, which just looks pretty cool, and you get like an extra polarity slot in your mod slot thing, whatever you want to call it. And that's about. So yeah, I just want to be transparent and let you know that. We'll start with Excalibur, because Excalibur is kind of the poster child of Warframe, as DE like to put it, and I guess for good reason. It is their first Warframe that they really developed, and he does look pretty badass. Now, Excalibur is described as a kind of a middle ground Warframe, capable of doing a little bit of everything, capable of some agility, capable of offensive playstyles, capable of support playstyles, also capable of some defensive playstyles as well. I've also equipped all the abilities for this video, and it's not something I would always do. I should also mention that my Excalibur right now is set up for a blind build, in which we will go over. Some people like to play more with slash dash, which we will go over. And but I like the blind ability. I like the more crowd control support style of play personally. But yeah, so Excalibur is really he really is kind of a middle ground Warframe. He has an ability called Slash Dash, which is this, which is pretty cool because you can kind of travel a little bit, so it gives him some agility. It also does a bit of damage. Now, the thing about damaging powers in Warframe, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, is that they kind of lose their usefulness and their importance later on in the end game of Warframe, when things reach level 100 or higher. These abilities won't insta-kill them, and even when it does hit them, it doesn't do that much damage in comparison to some of the end game gear that you could be using instead. So you got to keep in mind of that as well. So really, Warframe's utility abilities, this support abilities, are actually much more important for endgame. So that's why I kind of like building my Excalibur towards blind, which is this ability, over slash dash. And what blind does is all the mobs around you are blinded and they are stunned for a few seconds. And so I kind of like to play on that. and use my weapons to kill him. Now he has a third ability, Super Jump, which is exactly what it is. It just gives you a little boost to jumping, which is good for meleeing as well, because when you're up higher and you do a slam attack, the higher you are that you fall down from the slam attack, the more damage it does. So you can always use it in that fashion as well. So here's the mobs. I'm going to blind them. They're stunned, leaving my pod protected for a little while, and I can just kind of keep doing that. Now for his fourth ability, which is Javelin, he shoots a aerial blast of javelins that will pierce and nail any mobs that hits to any adjacent walls. So again, this is that's his final. This is fourth ability, and it does quite a bit of damage, and you can use it in conjunction with Mag's what was it? Bullet Attractor, I believe. And all the javelins will actually hit the one mob that got debuffed with Bullet Attractor, which we'll get into once we get into Mag. So that does a lot of damage. Even at higher levels, that becomes very, very devastating. So working with the Mag with Excalibur is very ideal, I have to say, especially you have players who know what they're doing. So he has pretty decent armor, not the greatest, but not the worst. He has decent running speed, not the greatest, not the worst. And he has decent health, not the greatest, not the worst. So again, he very much matches that description of being in the middle ground. So we're starting to get a little bit overwhelmed. Do a aerial blast, or sorry, aerial blind, a radio blind, I should say. That's the actual name of it. And that will take care of some crowd controlling. Gives me some time to deal with them with the melee. So I really, really do like that. I'll show you how slash dash functions. So it does quite a bit of damage in the earlier levels of Warframe. It's very, very reliable in the earlier levels of Warframe. Very, very powerful, and can be used as both offensive and as an agility move. So I gotta say, DE said that Excalibur is versatile, and they meant it. He is very, very versatile. Now, how is he in the end game? I gotta say, I don't see a whole lot of Excalibur users in the end game, mainly because he's so versatile. He's also, you know, what you would call a jack of all trades, master of none. So he's not great offensively, defensively, or support later on in the game. Other Warframes will outclass him for those specific roles. Although the nice thing about Excalibur is that he can fill those roles if necessary. Okay? So he does have that. But unfortunately, because at the end game, a lot of people already have advanced Warframes, and they just don't choose Excalibur because, again, there are other Warframes that do his jobs better because the Warframes are more specific towards that job. But that doesn't mean that he is a bad Warframe by any means. Okay? Aerial blind is, even at endgame, is still very, very useful as crowd control. Slash dash, even though loses a lot of its luster at endgame because the damage just isn't there, it's still very useful as an agility move to get from point A to point B in a hurry. Not quite as good as a teleport, but still very, very good. Still very, very useful, has lots of utility. That's the nice thing about Excalibur. Even when his other abilities become less useful, let's say, around the end game, his more utility side of his abilities become a lot more useful. Now, I've gotten actually pretty high level in Xeni, like round 50 or 60, with 3 Excaliburs and me as a Loki. So that goes to show that a good setup Excalibur, or good setups of any of the initial Warframes, and with, you know, good players, you can actually do quite well. You don't need advanced Warframes. You can do quite well with any of these initial Warframes. But again, keeping in mind, the general consensus in the community is that Excalibur is not as suitable for endgame material as other Warframes. And that is a little bit unfortunate. Even though the consensus is justified in the relations to the other more advanced Warframes, I think it's a bit too dismissive because, like I said, a good Excalibur with the right setup in the hands of a good player can do just as well as a Nova player, which is a more advanced Warframe. He's good. He really is good. And to be completely honest, none of the initial Warframes that you choose will be a wrong choice. They're all very good in their own rights. And they're all capable of endgame material, by all means. Now, they might not be optimal for endgame material as compared to more advanced Warframes, but they're very capable. Alright? So DE did not leave anyone who didn't bother getting Warframes on their own or buying Warframes in the dust. You can do quite well with your initial Warframes, Excalibur being one of them. And he looks cool. He looks really, really cool. He's actually one of the coolest looking Warframes in the game. Especially the Prime version. But like I said, Prime version and the regular versions, they're just like very marginal difference. The difference is completely ignorable. You should do just as well as a Prime Excalibur as a regular Excalibur. There's no, the difference is so minute. So as you can see, I'm doing quite well still, but again, this is, pretty early level. But still, these guys are like level 50, So to beginner players, level 50 is pretty high. You can get pretty tough. But I got really good equipment that's been formed multiple times. They're all been potatoed, which I should mention, all my Warframes, including the initial Warframes, are potatoed up, so they are powered up a little bit. But that's okay, because that'll keep it consistency. You'll be able to compare the three Warframes to each other in a relatively equal level in terms of power. I use melee a lot. I really like melee, as you can tell. The Orthos Prime is my baby. I absolutely love it. The Galantine's really, really good as well, but I find it a little bit too slow and not as versatile. But we'll get into actual equipments and what you should be looking for in equipment in another video. I'm starting to get a little heated, so do a little blind. I'll throw a couple melees and dead. There we go. So yeah, this is Excalibur, and like I said, very versatile. Jack of all trades. And we'll get out of here for now. That's again Excalibur. So is he worth picking? Is he worth picking for your first Warframe? That depends on what you're going for. If you're kind of just dabbling and you plan on getting other Warframes down the road, yeah, Excalibur's a pretty good choice if that's your plan. Now, if you're going to choose a Warframe that you're going to focus on, you're going to take the end game, you're only going to play this Warframe or mostly this Warframe, we'll get into that in a little bit. So I should probably show you my setup as well. You kind of saw the gameplay already. So this is my setup. /dash, quick, rest, flow, streamline, radio blind, javelin, stretch, continuity, vigor, and super jump with rifle amp. I'll have a mod video for beginners later on down the road, so I'm not going to get too far into it. I'm using the flux rifle, which has been potatoed and formatted multiple times, using these mods. I have an Acrid, potato and formatted multiple times, using these mods. And I'm using the Orthos Prime, potatoed and formatted multiple times, using these mods. And again, we'll get into equipments and mods later on down the road.